Hello everyone and welcome to this video where today I'm going to be showing you upgrading the horn or swapping the horn out on your car. This is the same sort of process for all cars because it should pretty much just be an unbolt and bolt on job. The car I'm going to be showing you on today is a 1997 Ford Escort. Now things that are going to differ a little bit will be where the horn is placed and how it connects up, and that's pretty much all there is to a horn really. The only things that can differ is where it is and how it connects up. So on my car, which is a 1997 Ford Escort, it's a single low note horn, or originally it was, and it's just basically it bolts to the side of the chassis frame, and then the horn sits there. The horn's actually grounded through itself, through that frame it sits on, and then it just has a positive connection, come through a relay, straight onto a spade terminal onto the horn. Now that horn failed. And originally, it was a low note horn that sounded like this. So I thought I can take this opportunity to, because the horn failed, and I just stuck on whatever I had at the time, which was a motorbike horn, which sounds pathetic, but nevertheless, it makes a sound when you press the button, which is what's important. I thought, since I kind of want to replace my horn anyway for the proper thing, ideally, this is a chance to upgrade it to something a little bit better. So newer Fords use a dual note horn. So like on my Escort, where originally it was this low note horn, the newer Fords use a dual note horn, which uses that same low note horn, but there's also another high note horn as well. And when you play both these horns together, it produces a better, a louder, and I suppose just a general all-round, it's just a greater sound than a single either low or high note horn, like my Escort was originally a low note horn. So, what am I going to be replacing it with? The horn I've chosen is from a 2008 Ford Focus Mark II. Now, the horns are pretty much universal in that they all are just a device that bolts onto the car. When you apply power, it makes a sound. So this is what the horn looks like that I bought. I bought this from eBay for about 10 quid. And it's literally just two horns and a bracket. Nothing special. Doesn't need to be anything special to retrofit this to an Escort. It's just a horn at the end of the day. All it does is bolt onto the car there, like so, and then plugs in. Now, Ford have switched from using, back in the day, like my car has a spade connector, and it's earthed through the chassis, so I've only got one connection, which is on, as I say, a spade connector. They've gone to using this setup, which is basically this connector. I don't know if I can pull it off. No, I can't, don't want to break it. So this connector is basically two pins that stick out, like a bullet connector kind of thing. And this is just something that sits on top. This wire goes off and connects to the exact same on the other horn. And it's just a connector that plugs on there. Now that's not a problem, I can adapt this to make it work. So at the end of the day, it's just positive and negative. Now my original horn is negative through the chassis, and then positive runs from the relay. So I can just do the exact same with this. Ground straight onto this metal piece, and then just positive run to the relay from the horn button. So, on the newer Fords that do use a single note horn, because there is still some of them, they basically have this same connector, but without all this wiring. It's basically just this one without this additional wiring, basically. But they still use this connection, which, because my Escort uses spade terminals, I don't have. So, the reason I chose this one is, A, it was one of the cheapest, and B, it actually came with a cut-off section of the wiring loom of the original connection, which plugs on just like that. And I can wire this into my car. So I can take my original feed from the relay, cut off the spade terminal, and wire on to one of these connections. Doesn't matter which, horns aren't polarity sensitive, but I'll probably just use the orange and blue one, just for sake of why not. And then this, I just need to ground it to anything metal. So all I'm going to do is cut off my spade terminal that I've currently got, wire this onto there, and I'm going to solder it, heat shrink it. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to put this onto a ground, and this is the car then adapted to the proper connector that newer Fords use, and then I can just get my new horn here, bolt it onto the car, and plug it in. So we are sticking OEM, we're sticking factory with a proper genuine Ford horn, but because of age difference, it means we've got connections difference, but we're basically just adapting my car to take this newer connector, which is fine, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Although that's not important on a lot of cars. If you're just swapping out the horn at the end of the day, it's a matter of unbolting the old one, bolting the new one on, and then plugging it in. But obviously because my car doesn't have the plug, we cannot plug it in, so that's why I've got to plug it in. So look at this horn. This is actually, specifically, this is from a Mark II Focus, a 2008 reg, as written on the side there, the eBay seller's written on there, Ford Focus Mark II 2008. Don't know what the number 3 is all about, but the horn itself, as we can see, is very rusty. Well, that's not a problem. I mean, to be honest, it's a device made of metal that's exposed outside. It's going to get rusty. At the end of the day, the mount's sturdy and the horns work, and that's all that matters. The rust doesn't matter. You ain't going to see it. It's hidden behind the bumper anyway. So, on my car, what I've got is I've got a hole in the side where my current mount sits, and the mount sort of comes down like this and across to the horn, which sort of faces down. Now, I've got two options, and I'll see what I decide to do at the time. I can either mount this bracket onto my current bracket, so it sits like that, or I can mount this just directly and take my original bracket off the car, which I'll probably do if I can. It depends what the bolts are like. Now, I know the bolt on the bracket where the horn sits, which is essentially this part here. I know that's free because I've had that off. I don't know what the one onto the car's like. Now, if I can get the one off the car's like, I'll just bolt this straight onto the car. If not, I can just bolt this onto my original bracket. It's not a problem. So, let's go and do this. Okay, so first, let's pop the bonnet. Let's open it up so we can get to where we need to get to. Now the horn, in my case, is located down here, behind the bumper. So, what I need to do is I can either take out the headlight, take off the, well, I don't even have to take off the bumper, to be honest. I can either take out the headlight, which gives me direct access, or I can remove the bumper, which gives us a lot more access, or I can access it from going directly underneath, which is what I'm going to do today, so I don't need to strip down the front end of the car. So, for an idea, this is what my horn sounds like at the moment. Bit stupid, but it works. And, well, let's just crack on. Okay, so what we need to get the car jacked up so we can get underneath it. And you always, of course, want to support the car with a stand as well, especially before going underneath. Okay, so this right here is the horn. And if we look up here, we can see the bolt all the way here that the horn's held on with. I'm going to stick a 30mm socket on there, like so, because that's the size it is. And obviously the size that yours is will depend on factors, but it'll probably be something like that. And then you're just going to get in there with probably an extension bar in your ratchet. Would be a good idea. Get that on. Set your ratchet to loosen. I'm just going to unbolting that is quite tight, which was my worry, because I don't want it to snap off. But we can hang on a second. Stupid little mistake, setting the ratchet the wrong way. Okay, so as I said, set your ratchet to loosen and crack it off. Now, going underneath is harder because when we're at the top, we've got a lot of room at the top to get in, whereas at the bottom, we're kind of just having to send it as it is. And the problem is we haven't exactly got a lot of room to get our hands up and hold the socket stable, so it is moving around a lot. But nevertheless, we can undo it. Now we're catching on the arch line, as you can see in the bumper, but it's coming undone. Once it's loose, it should drop out, and don't lose that bolt, because you're going to need to bolt the new horn in with it. And then all you're going to do is disconnect the one connection we've got, like that, and that's it. The old horn is removed. So now we need to do some wiring. Okay, so what I've done is I've pulled the wire all the way back through the top of the car so we can solder our new connection on. And the relay is just behind here where it plugs on. Now that's not a problem. So what I need to do is, as I say, I need to run a ground, because this car originally doesn't have a ground point for the horn, because Ford ran the ground straight through the mount on these. So this is actually, as I say, from a motorbike. Now I had to, because this is again a twin connection, I had to ground this myself, but it's the same matter as what Ford did. So it's basically the wire onto the mounting bracket here. So if we look at the new horn, we can either run a wire onto the mounting bracket here, but the problem is, wherever I put them, my ring terminals don't fit over the size of this bolt. They're quite small, which isn't a problem, but it does mean that they're not going to fit over my bolt there at all. They're not going to fit over that. Where the bolt goes through in there and mounts on, they're not going to fit. So we're going to have to, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this earth up to here, because there's plenty of space on the side of the chassis up at the top here I can mount onto. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of wire. Now I've got tons of wire. The colour doesn't matter really, to be honest. I mean, normally ground would be black, but I don't have any black wire, so I'm just going to use, this is just some old standard UK electrical cable from an old extension lead, and this is more than enough cable, so I'm just going to snip this, and my side snips like that. What we're going to do is we're going to strip the end with my strippers, just like so, twist it, put it over the ring terminal, like so, and then crimp it, because these are crimp connections. Nice and tight, like that, and it shouldn't be able to pull off. Nice and tight and solid. Okay, now this part isn't absolutely necessary, but I'm going to use this piece of tubing, which is going to go over the wiring and just basically protect it from rubbing against anything or anything like that. As you can see, it originally wasn't, it was just like that, plugged in. In fact, this isn't even original wiring, to be honest. Someone's fitted this, but this just basically goes over and just protects the wiring from rubbing against anything. If it does rub anything, it's less likely to chafe through the wire and cut it. So I'm just going to cut off this spade terminal here, because we don't need this anymore. Just like that, and throw that away. And then we're going to get my new earth wire. I'm going to put this to roughly the position I want it, so about there. I'm going to bring it down to length, which is somewhere here, and just cut it. We don't need that. And this just pushes over, and just push your wires through the tubing, no problem, like that. And then my wire, that's been a bit of a pain to get on, get a bit of tape. I may as well run them both down at the same time, actually, to be honest. So it's going to get both the wires. Take them on tight like so. Make sure it is tight, it's not going to pull out. And now, look at that. Sorted. Okay, so we can wrap this back up and put this out the road. Why is it sitting there now? There you go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some heat shrink tubing on the connections, and this is just, you can use electrical tape if you really wanted, but I'm just going to use heat shrink tubing because it's nicer to use, I think. Just like that. So I'm going to unplug this connector, like so. As I say, polarity doesn't matter, but I'm just going to use the orange and blue for positive and black for negative. Not, as I say, it doesn't matter. So we're going to strip off what will be my earth. Twist them together. Get yourself some solder. Heat up the joint and flow your solder in. It's proving hard for some reason, I don't know why. Let's let that joint heat up. There we go. Eventually heat up and just take the solder in itself. Okay. Just like that. And then we're just going to bring the, make sure that's nice and cool, heat shrink over. And I just use a hot air blower just to shrink it down. You can use lighter or whatever. Just need to basically blast it with heat. Just like that. Okay, and I'm going to do the same for the other connection. Okay, so that's that other connection made now. We've got a good solid connection. My plug is now wired on. So we can just pull this tubing down a bit, just like that. And this is just for protection, as I was saying. We can always wrap a bit of tape around as well. That'll help hold this tubing in place, especially because the tubing is actually quite big in comparison to the wiring, to be honest. You'd normally use thinner tubing than this for a wire of this thickness, but it is what it is. There we go. And that just keeps this wire nice and secure now, and it looks a bit more factory original. So we can just poke this back down from where it came from, which was between there, and then just straight down and out the bottom. It's a bit awkward because of my all the wiring for the headlights and that lot. But once I've sort of got it started to poke through, I should be able to see it right there. And put it out like that. Look at that. You can't actually see that. Okay. So we can see it here. This is it here with this tubing. So my earth now just needs to attach to anything metal. So I've got a relay there, which is already earthed. I can earth it onto. Or I've got that bolt hole next to it, or basically anything I can bolt it onto. This chassis rail somewhere. I could bolt it down there. You can see where there's other earths. Anywhere that's got some metal, you're just basically earthing this onto, because it's an earth, it just goes to anything metal. So I'm going to earth this to somewhere now. I'm going to look for what I think is going to be the best place to earth it to, and then connect it on. Okay, so you can see I did decide to mount my earth onto that bolt. So that's it now, it's all wired in. You see the wiring loom going down, we can see the wiring loom poking out, and if we look under the car, we can see the wiring loom comes out. So now, all that's left to do is mount the horn onto that hole there, and plug it in. Okay, so this is now where I've got to bolt this horn into place. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the horn, I'm going to work out how I want to position it, So I'm thinking probably that way, but then I've actually got this, yeah, it needs to go that way because I've got this tab here that sticks out, and that actually lines up with this tab here that sticks out here. Now I've got this wiring loom ring down for something. Okay, so this is the bonnet release cable, so I need to fit it between the bonnet release cable, just like that, and kind of wriggle it into place, which is there. Okay, so now we get that bolt and bolt it to the car. So get it in my hand to get it started. And it's starting to rain. How lovely. Welcome to Britain. Okay, so I've pretty much got them installed now. It's just the last bit of tightening on this bolt, like that. They are sturdy and going nowhere, so now we just get this wiring loom and plug it in, which is up the top there. We're not working out which way around it fits on. Not that way. There you go, click. This wire's nice and tidy out the way. So now let's test it. Okay, hopefully it should sound a whole miles of world better. Yeah. That's a lot better than that original thing. So there we are. Job done. Okay then, so there we have it. That is how I've upgraded and fitted a new horn to my car. That is also the same sort of process of fitting a horn to any car, really. It's just a matter of unbolting and bolting the new one in. The difference between mine was I've obviously adapted the wiring loom to accommodate for the new connection on the horn. But again, if you're going to be modifying the wiring loom, it's all the same sort of thing. It doesn't matter what car it is. At the end of the day, fitting a horn's all the same sort of job, or replacing a horn. It's a matter of unbolting the old one, bolting the new one on, doing wiring adaptations, and then plugging it all back together. If you're actually fitting a horn, then it's a little more involved, because obviously you've got to run relays and stuff like that. You know, but because obviously all I've done is adapt the wiring that's already coming from my relay, it's the same sort of process on pretty much any car, really. You just got to adapt the wiring and fit the horn, really. That's all there is to it. So yeah, that's a job well done, and thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in another video. I don't know what I'll do next. We'll see.